Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Graen, and we're back for another Conversations on Retail, and also with the University of Arkansas Supply Chain Department. We're really excited to talk about something that I've been passionate about for a long time, which is robotics and the role that it plays in retail. Before we jump into the topic, as we always do, we want to make sure that we do some introductions. And Zeena, you're all the way from San Diego, California. Why don't you come off mute and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. My name is Zeena Keshwji. I work at Brain Corp as a senior product manager, working dominantly on the shelf scanning robot. It's very exciting to work in robotics, to be able to solve use cases for associates, for customers through automation. It's been a very, very fun journey. Before that, I've been in product management for over a decade, and it's just been exciting to be able to apply the skill set and the learnings and conversations with customers to what we do now. It's a little bit about me. I can go ahead and pass it over to Matt now.
Yeah, thanks for that, Zenas. I am Matt Schilb. I've been working in and around retail technology for about 17 years now. I started my career at Walmart working within their global supply chain organization on projects focused on things like RFID. After Walmart, I worked within the solution provider space, working with CPG companies. I spent about 8 years working at Nielsen on some data syndication, data monetization initiatives. More recently, worked for an AI company doing planogram automation, and now here I am at Brain Corp, and I lead our customer success and analytics team, supporting a fleet of roughly 40,000 robots. Mike, you and I go way back. I live in Northwest Arkansas. You and I have known each other for about 15 years, so I'm really excited to really just have a chat with you and talk a little bit more about robots.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And just as a quick background on me, my name is Mike Graen. I've been in the retailer or supplier role for almost 45 years. Please don't do the math. It hurts my head as well. And I started out with Procter and Gamble. Spent about 25 years with Procter and Gamble. I'm at 20 of those 25 years were working in Northwest Arkansas with Walmart, the biggest retailer, and I was playing the information technology role. I had a chance to leave P&G and retire early from P&G from 2008, and I joined Walmart, and that's where Matt and I got to work together and do a lot of really cool stuff around getting product on the shelf for the customers, getting accuracy of inventory, knowing what's available, et cetera. And so I get full circle to not only have time with Matt would educate me on how we were going to solve these really big audacious problems to now he's at the Brain Corporation. So I left Walmart in about 2019. I started my own company and I'm doing on shelf availability, which includes things like algorithms, shelf scanning robots, RFID, et cetera. So it's all what's on the shelf, what's available for the customer, and how do we make sure we delight them to make sure the stuff's on the shelf. So I'm really excited to talk to you two about this particular topic. So before we get too far into this, Zeena, maybe you could just let us know exactly who is Brain Corp. Tell us a little bit about Brain Corp. Long have you been around? What exactly is kind of the space that you guys operate, and how do you help both retailers and customers?
Absolutely. Great question. Brain Corp was founded in 2009, so we've been doing this for over a decade now. Brain Corp is a AI and robotics company that specializes in automation for commercial spaces. So whether that's airports, industrial, it's retail locations, we are specializing in all of those dynamic environments. We developed BrainOS, the world's most proven software platform for autonomous mobile robots. And like Matt mentioned earlier, we power over 40,000 robots, and that is no small feat, right? It's a large fleet of robots that we are managing on a day to day basis. We specialize in autonomous floor care that runs around in different environments. And now, as of the past few years, we have been transitioning into shelf scanning robots in the retail space to help with on shelf availability, to help customers have a good experience, and to help the associates locate products that are out of stock or be able to divert their attention more to customers and focus on customer experience versus running to the back room to have to restock items. So that is a little bit about what Brain does when we started, what we started focusing on, and what our focuses are now.
So I remember several years back, it was a fairly large device, floor scrubber, and I believe we were in a convention center, and literally there was nobody on this device. It was just going up and down, cleaning. You could tell there was a wet mark behind it. There was no puddle. It did a marvelous job. It was that the foundation, the start of where you guys got started, which was the floor cleaning, or did you start somewhere else and then evolve into floor cleaning and then the whole retail space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we started with the floor cleaning space. So the robot that you're referring to, it's great. It looks like a ghost is operating the robot, right? But that's not the case. It's operating autonomously. And so the fact that the robot is able to clean the floors and to be able to operate without a human in the loop is key. We're able to clean the stores while catering to customers as well. So that was the foundation of where Brain Corp started. And as a result of that, we were able to manipulate our OS to now be able to cater to shelf scanning and on shelf availability.
Well, what's funny about this one was around the Halloween time and they put
Oh,
it
perfect.
on the robot. And yeah, I think you guys finally figured out, you've made it when they actually put a name badge on whatever's driving it, right? Because that way is, hey, that's a team member. That's part of our team, which is pretty cool. Matt, tell me a little bit about so you guys got into the whole area of on-shelf availability and inventory distortion. Matt, when you and I were working in retail, we would struggle with, gosh, there's hundreds of thousands of items on every single store. Every single particular item has got to be its own price. It's got its own location. It's got its own sizing. And sometimes you have people who would switch product up and pick something up and then put it back at a different spot. And we'd look like we're in stock, but we really weren't. We were disappointing customers. So that inventory distortion and that frustration of customers coming in and trying to find that, I believe this transition to get into retail is something you guys really spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I mean, I think even before saying a word about brain, I think we just really need to understand more about the problem statement. For those that have worked in operations, there is a very apparent what I would call symphony of chaos within these retail stores. I mean, it's really uh, impressive, but also you're like, how does this work? How can you run such a effective facility with all of that chaos? Because when you think about it, um, you have disruption from associates, from customers, from suppliers bringing product in, and even just third parties that might be in the store. So there's a lot of chaos that happens. And now, if you imagine for a moment that you get that retail operation to 100% accuracy, that might feel good for like a very short period of time, but that is very, very quickly going to fade. Inventory distortion is something that has to be constantly combated, quite frankly. And you have to figure out that right combination of people, process, and technology. We've always talked about that. That's going to sound very familiar to you, Mike, but you really have to find that right solution. And too much emphasis on any of one of those parts, and there's going to be gaps. So maybe going back to your question, what role would brain or robots play within the process? I mean, really, I think they play a key role. I think they are a critical component to helping to combat some of that chaos. If every single hour, every day, every week, these variables of change come into the store, a robot can be a very effective way to minimize that chaos, to re-baseline, and to really just create consistency and predictability. I think the perfect, scenario is that the robot is kind of boring, that it doesn't get a lot of attention, because ultimately that means that the robot can be working independently and ultimately fixing the problems that exist within the store. So, uh, Yeah, that's I guess my take on it. There's lots of ways that you can solve a particular challenge, but I think robots play a really interesting and important role.
That's awesome. What a great answer to the question, because that is important work. And if I think about, Matt and you and I spent quite a bit of time at Walmart. These are gigantic stores. We're talking anywhere between 180,000 and 220,000 square foot stores. They could have hundreds of thousands of items. Every single item has a location, kind of like the pegboard in my shop. Every tool is supposed to have the right location. And to your point around this disruption of associates, customers, there could be thousands of customers, there could be direct store delivery suppliers, there could be third parties in there, all trying to kind of move things around so maybe their stuff looks a little bit better. All of that causes distortion. At the end of the day, a customer is coming in to find a particular product, they get disappointed because that's not there. So being able to highlight that's really important. At the same point as I'm Zine, I'm going to kind of kick it back over to you, because as Matt and I have learned in retail, there's not a single solution for knowing what you have and where is it located, right? Sometimes it's a 1D barcode, like at a point of sale scanner where you scan the item. We're getting into, with GS1 2024 or 27, we're getting into 2D barcodes. Some of things have computer vision, some things have RFID. There's all this different technology. So how in the world does a robot navigate the aisles and locate the items when you've got all this different technology coming at you?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, our robots have RGB cameras on them. So, red, green, blue, you're able to take colored images of the shelves. Therefore, we're able to digitize the store in a way for associates. From the RFID standpoint, our robot on the other side has RFID antennas as well. So, we are able to assist with cycle counting of RFID tags in whichever area the customer may have tags. We're also able to, like I mentioned with the RGB cameras, able to take consistent pictures as our robot is autonomously navigating through the areas. And so you're absolutely right. There is not one way to solve for it, but we are able to have different methods of data capture with our robot to be able to help serve our customers from a associate perspective and an end customer perspective, because the more that the associates are aware of what's going on in the stores through automation, they're able to help their customers even more, because now the shelves have product on them. RFID tags or items that have those tags, now we have an idea of when it goes out of stock versus just playing a guessing game, which ultimately can lead to too less of inventory or too much of inventory, which essentially will end up impacting overall cost, right? So we want to help the business and our customers have great sales revenue and to be able to order as needed versus over order.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. Because I would imagine that you, with a precious commodity like resources in the store, associates or employees of the store, there's a lot of things that they could be doing. The more you can automate some of the things that are more routine, I would imagine would be helpful to be able to free them up to spend more time making sure products on the shelf and things like that. Matt, how in the world does this robot work? Okay, so I see the robots in the shopping malls and the convention stores and even the airports that are simultaneously cleaning. The environment where you're cleaning the floor is one thing. The environment where you're using all of these sensors to try and collect information about the shelf and the store condition. How in the world does it help retail operations and the customer experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is where we're really building on our initial strengths, right? I think for years we proved our ability to autonomously navigate a store and doing that very well to where, the robot can get places very consistently. And I think you build on strengths like that. And as advancements in technology come about, specifically on image capture and recognition, and even new technologies like RFID, it creates these expanded use cases to say, wow, okay, this robot could get to a particular place. Now, what more can you do with it? And it's really exciting too, because, technologies like RFID, again, like this is not new technology, but it's really reaching that maturity and critical mass, and there's so much more focus and discussion on it. Um, but technologies like RFID are amazing because you're able to see into the store. You're able to really understand where do the problems exist. And ultimately, you can figure out how much you want to vertically integrate into retailer operations. But ultimately, a company like ours could go as far as to just show you the problem and ultimately help to inform your decisions. Or we could go all the way into core integrations of your business and we can work to correct those inventories at shelf. So we know, technology, people, they have to go hand in hand. And it's just really nice to see a new technology, not new, sorry, a new use of technology like RFID really start to get to a tipping point where it's like, okay, now we can solve big problems.
That's awesome. Well, Zine, I asked that question of Matt because I was interested in his reaction because as the person responsible for customer success, by the way, I love that title, the person who's responsible for customer success. You better have some broad shoulders, Matt, because there's a lot of people who define customer success a different way. But Zena, from a product standpoint, I bet you have a similar or maybe even some different perspectives about this. How does this robot improve retail operations and your customer experience from your point of view?
Yeah, the way that I see the robot improving retail operations is really by the automation that it provides, right? So instead of a associate going around the entire store and making sure that the price tags are correct, if you really think about how much time is associated with that and how much that time could be put towards a customer or another high value task, it makes a huge difference. Now, after the robot has scanned and it has detected, okay, there are 20 price tags that are incorrect, it provides it to the customer through our mobile application more as a task list. So you know exactly where to go, what area of the store to go. This is going back to what you were saying earlier, Mike, about how large these stores are. So if someone is manually doing this, the amount of time that it's going to take, I don't even want to think about. I don't think they want to do it either, right? So if we can automate those tasks and there are 20 insights that come from the robot running autonomously and the associate knows these are the 20 price tags I need to address and then I can go focus on customers, that is the ideal solution because now the customers feel as if the associates are more involved, more engaged. You're actually able to assist versus focused on is the price correct or not? That is important, but it is a task that can be automated. So, from that perspective, I think it provides so much value.
Gotcha. Well, let's double click a little bit into terms of the how, because Matt, to me, this is one of the things. Okay, it's great that it does all that work, but talk to us about it's sort of like when you first get something, you're really excited. It's a new toy or a new car or whatever, and then you realize you got to fill it up and you got to buy insurance, you got to put oil in it and all that other kind of stuff. So, what are the training and maintenance procedures that you have to do to make sure these are effectively used in a retail environment?
Yeah, I love that question. I'll take first stab at it, and Zena, feel free to chime in after. I think ultimately it boils down to very effective change management, clear communication, and making sure that you are successful in that initial deployment. Ultimately, these robot operators really have to understand the who, what, when, where, how, and really kind of understand how it integrates best within their job. Many of these are true experts at their role. They have a lot of expertise. They really understand how to do their job successfully. We just want to augment that and to be able to introduce perhaps a new and more effective way of doing certain things. But that feedback that comes from the operator is so critical. So, really, again, when we introduce something like one of our robots into the store, we put a lot of focus on that initial deployment, making sure that they understand what are the expectations. You can't just drop any new technology in and walk away from it. You have to really understand how it integrates. And for something like this, where we're folding it into an existing set of responsibilities, having that buy-in and support from the operator is critical. So ultimately, over the years, we've really taken that associate feedback. We've worked it into our product. We've worked it into how we deploy. And all of that great expertise that we've picked up on over the years is now built into a lot of our product and built into how we do our initial deployments.
Mm, wow. So why don't I see robots in every retail store? There's got to be some barriers for adoption that we may not be talking about. I don't know if that's customer perception or if it's associate perception or this whole, well, if I put a robot in, suddenly people are going to lose jobs. Although I see the work that needs to be done is always growing, and the workers that need to do that work is always a smaller percentage of. But help us understand some of the concerns of privacy, job displacement. What are some of the reasons why we're not seeing them throughout the retail industry at this point in time?
I can take this one, Matt, and if you would like to chime in. From my perspective, a big reason I think that we're not seeing a lot of robots in the retail spaces is simply what you're saying, Mike. I think that the perception of robots is unfortunately negative, and we work very hard every single day to change that narrative. Robots are not here to take jobs from associates or to get them laid off or fired, whatever terminology you want to use. We are truly there with the robot to help optimize labor. We are there to make sure that if an associate is working on restocking, well, instead of that, what else could they be doing to optimize their time at the store? Bring value to the retail store, bring value to the customers. And that is what our main objective is with automating these tasks that are so incredibly repetitive. And if we're able to do that and you're able to provide a great customer experience, that is essentially what we're looking for. On the other side of usability with the robot, after the robot is done scanning, the work is not completed. The associate still needs to go into the mobile app, look at the insights, and then be able to action on them. And so, from that perspective, it goes back to what Matt was saying earlier. We are taking the feedback that we get from our associates very, very seriously, and we use that to continue to create better products. So, when it comes to the user experience of our products, whether it's the robot or it's the mobile application or any operations tools, like Matt had mentioned, the operations job is a behemoth, right? So, how can we truly make that better? So we consider how to simplify all of those things with all of our products, and that is ultimately the goal. So robots are not here to take jobs, they are here to optimize and make things better so day-to-day tasks can be easier.
And I'll just add to that very briefly. Um, I think you said it a moment ago, Mike, about the name badge. Like once that operator, once that store associate really does embrace this technology and this, capability kind of as another colleague, that's when you really see things take off. And for us, like the whole point of robots in stores is to maximize the utilization, to really get the most out of that robot. And if you can't cross that barrier of change management at store level, it's very difficult to get to that level of consistent and thorough utilization. So we really, really put a lot of priority in working with these operators, making sure that they feel heard, and making sure that we can support them with knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to be successful in using these tools.
And Matt, you and I were very fortunate to be involved in efforts within a retailer where we were automating work. We were taking things that used to be very, very laborious, scan every item, do this, and mechanize that. Do you guys are you concerned at all about the customer aspect of this? And when I say customer, I mean the customer buying the products in the store. Have you seen any negatives there, and how are they reacting to automated robots in a retail environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to consider the customer experience. You have to really prioritize that. And I think that's a key part of operations. Anytime you introduce some type of change within operations, you really have to understand how does this impact the associate's job, but also how does this impact the customer's experience within the store? Ultimately, in that symphony of chaos that I was referring to, that is retail operations, you really do have to figure out, that win aspect. There are times within retail operations that are more suited for robot operations. And ultimately, there's a lot of, you know, data and studies that could say, when is that? And really, it depends on the retailer, it depends on how they operate their business. But ultimately, trying to avoid some of those really high intersections of stocking and customer traffic is going to be the better time to run a robot, right? That's just intuitive. Get out of the stalker's way, get out of the customer's way, and ultimately run that in a way that's consistent and predictable. Because I think that's the baselines of any good product is they need to be consistent, they need to be predictable. And I think ultimately, when a robot is put into use, whether it's early morning or a particular time in the afternoon or overnight, it's really just up to the retailer to define how do we most effectively use this.
Yep. Well, and I think from a customer point of view, speaking as a customer who shops in a lot of different retail stores, the fact that I notice that when I go to the store and buy the things that I'm looking for, they're there, they're available for me. The number of times that I've seen customers walk to a area, my favorite example is printer cartridges. I'm looking for the black printer cartridge for my printer, and you don't have it. And I called you before and you said you had 5 of them, and guess what? You don't have any of them. I'm immediately getting out my phone, and no, I'm not texting somebody. I'm probably using that customer's Wi-Fi or that retailer's Wi-Fi to go and order it from an online retailer, right? It happens all the time. So the reality is, if you can help make sure that product's available for a customer, Mr. Sam Walton, remember, said this, Matt Schilb, you will get fired every day when you disappoint a customer. They will figure out a way to get the stuff they want. And I think this is just the one more set of tools in the arsenal that helps that. Speaking of success, I'm going to look for both of you. I'm looking for some success stories. I think we can talk theoretically about how this thing works, but give me some verbatims or some success stories where this has really made a difference within a retailer that you guys are working with.
Yeah, I'll go,
Yeah.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a few very high profile retailers that have started using robots as part of their daily operations. Um, they are truly integrated into their data and their operations. And if there is a hiccup in that, it is identified very quickly. And ultimately, yes, it's all through that spirit of identify a problem, an opportunity area that needs to be addressed, and then fix it just as quickly as possible. And yes, that's not just on the cleaning side. Like, it's great when we improve the cleanliness of a store. I think again, lots of tangible and intangible value in that. But I think that, when you talk about those higher tier use cases of inventory management, shelf scanning, yeah, we have a lot of retailers. Zena, maybe you can help me with a number here. I'm going to get it off, but it's something like 20 million images per day is what we're capturing right now.
That sounds accurate. Yes.
It's a tremendous amount, and when you're talking about 20 million images per day, there's a lot that you can do with that, and ultimately, take that image, turn it into an actionable task. Like, that in itself is not easy either. Like, that requires a lot of expertise to say, how do you take an image and turn that into a task? There's a lot to that, but we've partnered with retailers and figured out how to do that very effectively.
Awesome. Zena, how about you? Do you got any good examples that you can share where this robot has just fundamentally changed the way the retailer does work in the stores?
Absolutely. I will share a more fun story of adoption versus usability. So, a lot of our retailers during the holidays, using Halloween, Christmas as an example, they will decorate the robot, whether it's with a Santa hat or it's with bells, right? So, that in itself shows you how integrated these robots do get with our retailers and how the adoption is very much there. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, once the robot gets decorated, that is the rite of passage. The robot has been accepted. It's a very exciting time. And so once we see that with our retailers, we know this is providing value. This is helping with inventory management. It's helping with on shelf availability, these insights that we're providing to them, because it is a huge lift for us and expertise that is very important. We are able to really use all of that information and provide value to our customer. And I think that is a thank you once you see that the robot has been decorated, because it's like we've accepted them as an employee. This is a high functioning employee and we really appreciate it. So from that perspective, adoption is always a fun uphill battle, but I would say that we've been doing really, really great things with it.
Does your robot have a name? Do they call it by a name, or is it every particular installation they get to call it by it's a different name based on what they think is important?
Uh, From what I've seen, it's usually a different name per store, per employee base, per where they find value from it. Matt, do you have a different?
No, that's right. Yeah, we really like for that to just be something that again the store gets to decide. That's not something that we've put out as like a branded robot name, but instead, like again, just leave some of that discretion up to the stores as they figure out how to, interact with this new colleague in a different way.
Nice, nice. Give me a sense of what are we talking about? If I sometimes people go, well, if you stack up the amount of stuff we sent from here to there, it would be 5 times of this Empire State Building. Give me perspective about how much does this actual robot travel within the retail space?
I might like to say maybe we've like cleaned the moon. I don't know. I don't have that as a data point. But I think it's something like 300 billion square feet. I mean, it's an absurd number. It's obviously like Xena was saying at the start of the call, like we've been doing this for a while, and I think there's tremendous strength that comes in that. I think we have seen the corner cases, we have solved the corner cases, and when it's difficult for a robot to navigate, we've probably seen it. We've probably put that into our logic and algorithms. We have a tremendous team of engineers that really make this autonomy better and better and better every year. And I think that's what allows us to maybe we'll clean the moon. Maybe that'll be like the next goal is whatever the square footage of the moon is. Maybe we're past it. We'll see.
That's all. That's awesome. I don't know. The moon is 300 billion square feet. That's a that's a lot
Maybe
of.
we cleaned it a few times then. I don't know, Mike.
Bring it's pretty dusty up there too. You better send more than one. How about that? All right. Well, it seems and we've already touched on this a little bit, but it seems to me definitely the advantages of leveraging, and this is just another tool in the retailer toolbox, right? It's not, well, all world hunger and global warming are going to be solved by a robot. It's another piece of the puzzle that helps to automate this. But there obviously have been some lines where we've not seen the adoption that we would like as an industry. And I know you guys are very adamant that this is an important thing. So why aren't people just lining up at the door to say we're ready to jump into this thing? Because it seems to me like the benefits far outweigh the costs and the risks of it.
Sure. So I think it's going to be twofold. I think it goes back to what we had chatted about with user adoption. I feel that a lot of associates and retail customers may think, hey, if we have enough robots, we're going to get rid of our staff. We're going to get rid of employees. And so that may be a reason as to why people do not want to move forward. Of course, with automation, there is a cost associated with it as well. And so it's very possible that retailers may not want to make that investment. And I think that those are some of the reasons as to why we're not seeing it in every local store. But like any new technology, you have your early adopters that will lead the way. And I do think that with the retail customers that we currently have, they are definitely setting that foundation. They are our pioneer customers that are leading the way. And once we have a reference and credibility with those retailers, and we can tell other new retailers about how we've been successful in the space, I think that can lead to more adoption and just truly continuing to do informational podcasts like we are doing now, letting people know how robots can assist with automation, with sales, with customers, with associates. And they're really here to help, not to take your job away. I think that if we can get all of those things, that will truly help with more robots in more stores.
Well, this is one of my favorite questions that I ask at the end of every podcast, and it drives some people nuts, but I'm going to put you guys on the spot because you've done such a great job with all the questions I've asked so far. What questions did I not ask that I should have? What's on your burning, kind of on the top of your mind? I wish you would have asked me this question because, boy, I had an answer for that one. So we'll start with Zeena. Anything that I didn't ask that I should have? Anything that you'd like to make sure that we get out to the audience before we conclude this podcast?
Absolutely. I think a big thing, it correlates to retail, but for others to know that automation and robotics is very much involved in other industries. Retail is the one industry that's been slower to adopt. The examples I can give you are airports, industrial, warehouses, manufacturing places, distribution centers. Like I said, I know that it's not encompassing retail, but it is a part of the retail supply chain. When products are manufactured, they go to the distribution center, and that distribution center will send it out to a retail location. And so, in my mind, retail is that last step before the consumer is going and getting that product. And so, if the retailers knew, hey, to be able to count this inventory, to count these pallets, to get this product to you to satisfy the customer, we're using robotics and automation and conveyor belts and this and that to be able to be successful in delivery. And I think that that piece of information can truly help individuals adopt more and be aware that this is just a part of the supply chain life cycle.
Mm, great perspective. Yep. Matt, how about you? Anything that I did not ask that I should have?
I mean, maybe not, but I think I'll just double click really quickly on the maturity of RFID and just how much robotics can play in that space. I think that again, lots of technologies over the years, lots of ways to solve problems. We've seen it all the way from, you know, the pedestal stands at receiving doors and exit doors and transition points. And, there's been lots of evolutions of how can we make the most of this new technology that, is kind of really reaching maturity in stores. And I think that robots can and will play a very important role there. Really being able to understand, again, when these robots navigate, we know the XY coordinates of where the robot is. That helps so much as we think about retailers building maps and better understanding where product is and how that can be served to customers. That XY coordinate is really impactful because inventory can be all over the place. Sometimes purposefully, sometimes because it's misplaced. But then another cool aspect is the Z coordinate. We're getting more and more insight on, which camera saw it, which RFID antenna saw it, and being able to really understand, is this product on the top shelf or the bottom? So not only can we tell you where on that XY coordinate it is, we can tell you a little bit more about where it is positionally. So I think again, like it's an evolving space. It's something that ultimately requires the right use case, the right technology. But I'm just very passionate that robotics is going to further help to accelerate and transform RFID adoption.
Well, that's a great point, Matt. And I think back to the times that you and I got to spend time with Walmart, kind of looking through RFID, and we take people literally from a clipboard and a piece of paper. I have five of these SKUs and three of these SKUs, and then we move them to I get to scan it and make it much faster. When we gave them one of these things, they were like,
He's got it on his desk. Look at him.
"My desk." It's on my desk because people thought that was the greatest thing in the world because I could literally count hundreds of items in seconds. Well, guess what? A retail store of 180,000 square feet, I'm going to have shoulder surgery by the time I get done scanning all this stuff. So you're right, that monotonous capturing of data, et cetera, ultimately people are going to have to do something with that data. That's where you leverage people and intelligence and customer facing stuff. But collecting the data, I mean, one of my favorite quotes is the future of retail, you got to know what you have and where's it located all the time. And that's hard to do when you got a 220,000 square foot store. So Guys, I want to thank you so much. This has been incredibly insightful from my perspective. I'm really excited about the kind of technology that's coming available in the industry to automate these work that we typically have done with people to free people up to spend more time taking care of customers. And this is fantastic. Thank you guys so much for your time. Zeena, by the way, I see you're sporting the merch here. You got the Brain
I
Corp.
am.
That's pretty cool. You got a website where we could all log in and buy our own Brain Corp hat, or is that not available?
It's not available yet.
Oh,
Yet.
yet. Oh, there's a yet there. So you're going to not only do inspections of floors and clean floors, but you're also going to have a table where your merch is going to be sold, et cetera.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Possibilities are endless.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate you guys' time. And we will be putting this podcast out for lots of people to be able to take advantage of. So have a great rest of your day. And thank you very much for your time.